Thanks, everyone. I have a question for what was touched upon by what Nadine called the power of solidarity. I think it was helpful to define it in those two ways, because I feel like the word solidarity is what dialogue was back in the early 2000s. It's become a bad word now in a lot of ways, and I just would like to elaborate on what the role for these people are, because this is a huge, segment that's coming forward to do organizing work. So I think it was something that this gentleman was touching upon, and if you could just speak a little bit more to that would be really helpful.
Just a quick question that it was mentioned by one of the speakers that the U.S. support for Israel has to do with U.S. access to oil, control of oil supplies, or whatnot. I just wondered if anyone wanted to discuss that more, because I don't think that is that clear cut. I think there's other. In some ways, sometimes support for Israel runs counter to U.S. imperialism having to do with oil supplies, and sometimes it works with it, sometimes not. And there are other reasons, non-materialist, directly economic-based reasons for U.S. support for Israel, at least in terms of foreign policy. So if anyone wanted to talk a little more about that.
Hello? Okay. First of all, I just want to, appreciate this conversation. It's been really interesting, and, I like the critique of NGOs and this whole peace process. What I said about the peace process basically being a way to delegitimize resistance is really important, and, I came to this event because I like the title of it. It really speaks to actually Israel, what Israel's agenda is. So yeah, my question is, on this question of what is solidarity and the different conceptions people put out, particularly this concept of joint solidarity. And so my question is, a lot of people have brought up the standard. We need to be proceeding in our solidarity from standards of universal justice. As I understand it, a lot of people are saying that. So how do you guys see that? What are these standards of universal standards of justice? And then, to me, my question is, my other question is that seems to be somewhat in contradiction to the idea of universal justice seems to be somewhat in contradiction to the idea of this joint struggle concept of solidarity. In other words, solidarity being something that's each person has their identity group and then it's extended from one identity group to another, versus why can't we all proceed in our thinking from the perspective, our starting point being the perspective of emancipating all of humanity. So that's the question, or a couple questions.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to be here tonight for the nice panel. I learned a lot. I just have a quick comment about a few concepts here I'm learning. What attracted me to this panel is when I received this afternoon an email from a friend, is the word solidarity. That's what attracted me. So I thought about Poland back in the 70s. And I like your analysis, Nadine, the joint versus power. I like many other things. But what really bothered me tonight is I keep hearing common enemy. Are we talking about a state of mind? Are we talking about a power? Are we talking about Zionism, for instance? I need more specificity on this. And then I noticed another thing, last comment, because this topic is in my soul. I'm originally from Palestine, I'm from Bethlehem. And I'm a physician by training. I just went and volunteered last year at the Haitian camp. And I noticed there is a vacillation and there is a pendulum between negotiation as a power versus resistance. For instance, we talk about Nelson Mandela and approach versus, the resistance of apartheid. My question to you is George Habas is right after all when he said what's taken by force should be taken by force, or should we leave room for negotiation too? And finally, where does Al-Qaeda stand here? Does it serve or make a disservice for our cause as a whole? Or should we consider it as a true and sincere solidarity? I know there's many things I threw on the table. I apologize for that. Thank you so much.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Jackie. This question is from the webcast. It's for Lubna. What is the PYN's vision for more practical support for the struggle and steadfastness inside?
Any more questions for right now?
So there's a couple questions on the framework that we brought up today around solidarity. And we're trying to understand the question, and I think we figured it out, Shahid and I, but I don't see contradiction between the two. Between seeing it within a joint struggle framework and universal justice. Because joint struggle framework is putting, again, the goal is putting the needs of the oppressed or those who are experiencing the injustice at the center when we speak about universal justice. And I made the distinction between joint struggle and what I term power solidarity because there is a distinction. Power solidarity, I'm not trying to delegitimize it completely and say it's not important. I'm just saying it needs to be conscious. You need to be conscious of your power within your solidarity work and organizing. And make sure, while you're conscious of your power through race, class, gender, and sexuality, that you're putting the needs and the voices of the oppressed above the voices of the oppressor. If you are not doing that, you yourself become a voice of the oppressor, because you're pushing your power within those spaces. So no, I don't see them in contradiction, but it's more a conscious solidarity approach. And like I said, these different frameworks that we describe, all of them at the center should be justice. So I don't see them in contradiction. I don't remember the other questions, but I think someone's the use of force. Non-violence, armed struggle, these are only strategies to an end. So to me, saying I'm for armed struggle, first I would never say you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. I think sometimes the use of force may be necessary as a strategy, or non-violence is a better strategy at some point. But again, these are just strategies towards an end goal. So I wouldn't focus so much on the use of force, and I also don't think external players should be dictating whether or not you should be using force for your resistance. But yeah, that's my comment.
So, I also wanted to add something there. I think that there's kind of a revisionist thinking about South Africa that we have to step back from and remember. Nelson Mandela was a terrorist. The ANC was a terrorist organization. The ANC engaged in armed struggle the entire time it was struggling. So I don't think that there is a difference between the modes of resistance used in South Africa and the modes of resistance used in Palestine. Now, I think that the question you ask, whether George Habash, whether what was taken by force must be taken back by force versus negotiation, I don't think that those are, I don't think that there's only negotiation and force. There's a lot of stuff that's not negotiation, but is also not force, right? And so I personally would, like Nadine, I don't think that that any tactic in struggle is necessarily wrong. I don't. I believe I agree with Lord Churchill about pacifism being a pathology. To say that the only way to resist is through pacifism, I don't agree with. And I know there are people of various beliefs and religions who do believe that pacifism is the only valid way. And that's fine, but personally I don't think that's the case. And even if I did, I think that as people in solidarity, it's not, for me, it's not my place to tell anybody how to do their resistance. In terms of your question about Al-Qaeda, I do not believe Al-Qaeda is any kind of legitimate resistance movement. Al-Qaeda appropriates the Palestinian people just as Arab nationalism did in the 70s, in my personal opinion. And I believe that on the basis of actions that I don't see having any liberatory effect, a resistance movement works to resist and liberate. If that's what you are, then you have to work, use actions that will result in liberation. I know people will disagree with me, that's my personal opinion about that. In terms of whether the US support for Israel is based solely on oil imperialism, I don't think that it's solely based on oil imperialism. I don't think that there's a single sole reason. I think there's been a lot of work and people writing about how much of US foreign policy is based on racism, and I think that plays a huge component when it comes to foreign policy with regards to Israel. That's not to say that oil is not a large motivation for US actions in the Middle East, but whether anything can be pinpointed to a single reason, I'm not sure that, I agree with you that that's not the sole reason.
So I'll try to go real quick. Just to add to the whole idea of oil not being the sole reason, what I've learned from studying the economic conditions or learning from understanding the economic system that we live in is that if you follow the money, you will get your answers, right? So living in a capitalist system, and right now we're at the highest stage of capitalism, which is imperialism, to ask the question and really follow where is the money going to and why are we in different places of the world. So to add to oil companies, that I definitely think is one of the main reasons. I'm sure there are corporations that are building hotels, multinational corporations that are siphoning other natural resources outside from oil, to military, rebuilding the country. So all these different opportunities to make money. And again, if you follow the money, you will definitely get your answers.